Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Minnesota Sports Pulse, giving you a vitals check on our favorite Minnesota pro sports teams. I am Josiah Eccles here with my wonderful co-host John Burgart. And you know what, John? We don't get to celebrate playoff wins too often as Minnesota sports fans in our lives. As we know, no titles in our lifetime other than the Minnesota Lynx. Shout out Lynx. But the Minnesota Timberwolves have done a good job the last few years, giving us good, exciting playoff runs, back to back trips to the Western Conference Finals. And in this first round, an emotional roller coaster of a 4-2 series victory over the Denver Nuggets. Plenty of ups, plenty of downs, losing Ant and Dante DiVincenzo in game four, getting the news that Io was going to be out for game six after his heroics in game four, but we got the job done. Some great performances that we'll get into briefly before we move on talking about the Spurs matchup. But John, after watching that Denver matchup, what was your biggest takeaway?
I mean, my biggest takeaway was just the fact that we didn't give up. There's no quit in this team. That was something that, you and I have discussed after those injuries happen. It's super easy to roll over. Extremely easy to just roll over and say, "Hey, we're done." We don't have the people anymore. Our best players are out. We're missing two or three starters, like super easy. But that's not what happened. They came out and they punched Denver in the mouth and they won. They took it, we were down four players actually, including Anderson. So down four players, and we still came out and we beat them to end the series. So it's not. I mean, if we're taking anything away from that series, it's the no quit. I mean, our
Mhm.
foot's always on the gas. It doesn't matter who's out there; they're going to give it their all, which is something that extremely admirable. I think anybody who's watching, and even if they're not, Minnesota fans, they can sit there and admire that and tip the hat to the team that doesn't give up. So that's something that I'm super excited about because we're gonna need that kind of mentality and that attitude in this series, with the Spurs. And it was really nice that we, were tested with that right away.
You're absolutely right, John. We are going to need that in this Spurs matchup. Some great performances in this Denver series. Give a shout out to Io for his game four. I don't think it's too small of a thing to say, and you and I discussed this offline, that his game four performance after losing Dante in the first quarter and Ant in the second quarter, him scoring 43 points off the bench, that saved the series. Going down or tying it up 2-2, having to go game five in Denver, which felt like a little bit of a predetermined outcome, how that game was going to go with that emotional letdown. That was a series saving performance in game four. Terrence Shannon Jr. getting his first playoff start in game six after getting some scolding in the media from Chris Finch. He got called out and he backed it up with great 24 points in that. But for the series as a whole, John, who are you shouting out as your MVP of the series?
I mean, it has to be Rudy. It has to be Rudy. Now, you know that I'm a defensive guy. Okay, like
Mhm.
defensive players don't get near enough credit in any sport, to be completely honest with you. But in basketball, we're all about how many points can you score, what kind of numbers can you put up, that kind of a thing. There are countless players in the NBA that all they do is shoot and do not play defense. They're a complete liability. But there are very select few players that are actually defensive minded, come in and they play just quality defense all the time. And Rudy put on one of the best, I think, series performances that we've seen defensively in a long time. And he did it on one of the best, if not the best player in the league right now. So that's something that I think he needs to be, given his flowers for. And I don't think a lot of people are going to give him, at least not to the respect that like he deserves, right? They're going to comment on it and say this and that, but then they're going to go through the, games that McDaniels did in game six or that Io did, in games 3 and 4 or whatever it was, right? For him, yeah, 3 and 4 for him to come out, and take over those games. Like that's what they're going to give their flowers to, and rightfully so. Like if I had to choose an offensive MVP, it's going to be Io. That's who I choose. But I'm going with Rudy, and I don't think there's anybody else that you can choose or tell me that would persuade my mind.
Yeah, Rudy had a fantastic series. You can't stop the Joker. It's just no one's been able to stop the Joker, but he had him flustered. Joker was getting into scuffles after several games. Joker gave up shooting the three, and now his
I've
three-point shot
never
had kind
seen
of
him like
abandoned
that.
him. Yeah,
Never seen Joker like
he
that ever.
yeah, he he struggled for Joker, for his standards. He wasn't controlling the game in the same way, and Rudy deserves all the credit for that. Underrated thing that happened too in game 6, 8 assists, no turnovers, including a just absurd wraparound left-handed pass to the corner for Terrence Shannon Jr.'s 3. I think that was in the 4th quarter too.
That was beautiful.
That was great, all time from Rudy, but I am gonna disagree with you on the MVP. I am gonna give it to Jaden McDaniels, another defensive, masterclass, especially in game 6. I too, like you, I love a good defensive performance. That's all we could do in high school basketball. Anyone who knows us knows that. We couldn't play offense, we were there to play defense.
I don't know if I
So we
play
have a
defense
soft
either,
spot for
but it's
that.
all right. I appreciate you being nice to me.
um, Jaden McDaniels, and obviously he drew the other tough matchup in Jamal Murray, who had his best season to date, all pro season, known as a playoff riser. Had a good first game with the fouls, and Jaden had some frustration. Was com- Committed some fouls. I think he said they were calling fouls all night, so I decided to actually give them a foul when he shoved Joker in the back. But through it all, the game 2 quotes, the game, I think 4 scuffle with Joker, or that was game 3, whichever one that was. His facial expression never changes, calling people out for bad defenders, the whole team, all of them, they're bad defenders, and backs it up. And then in game 6, masterclass performance, our leading scorer, 32 points, his career high, I believe. Um, 10 rebounds, no turnovers, doing a lot of the primary ball handling along with Terrence Shannon Jr. in the clutch, and holding Jamal Murray, playoff riser, so many clutch shots and game winners in his career. 12 points on 4 of 7 shooting, had him in jail all night. Rudy's a great shout. And you know what? It's great to have two guys who both deserve the MVP and to be able to debate about that. That's a fantastic thing because they're both going to need to be at their absolute best for this next series. This is a different type of team that they're going up against, a whole new challenge. And any other final thoughts on the Nuggets before we jump into that matchup with the Spurs?
The only thing that I have to say is see you later because we're on to the
Uh,
next round. And now we got a big old matchup here with the Spurs, which I mean, I'm not feeling phenomenal about. I don't think any Minnesota fan is feeling phenomenal about, but this is the cards that we've been dealt, and now we got to go out and play. And we just talked about their no quit mentality, so they're gonna come out with that in mind, with a chip on their shoulder. We're not favored to win this. In fact, we are extreme underdogs. I think what
mhm.
would you say, minus 900 or something like that, right? That's what we're at.
Minus 950 on
hmm
FanDuel.
Yeah, for the
So
Spurs. So
for
like
the Spurs,
there
yes.
nobody expects Minnesota to come out and win
Mm-mm.
this. And I'll be honest, I don't think anybody expects Minnesota to come out and win 2 games, like make this a 6 game series. I
Yeah,
think that a lot of
a
people are
lot of
thinking
Spurs
it's
in
going to be a
5.
4-0 sweep or a five, yep, or a one, right? One win
Mhm.
for Minnesota. So, um, I mean, we can jump right into this, matchup here right now. I think you and I have talked about this, and you said this earlier. We won 2 of 3 from them within the regular season, but
Mhm.
we both also said that those numbers don't mean anything. There's so many intangibles there that you can't even consider because we're not the same team and they're not the same team, and especially with our injuries, right?
Mhm.
I know. I think you brought up Rudy only played 2 games and Wemby only played 2 games,
Yeah,
right? And
Rudy played 2 games, Wemby played 2 games, and Wemby's best game where he had 39 points and dropped 55 in that, thriller, I think that was in San Antonio, that was the game Rudy missed, so Johan Berenger, picked up a lot of minutes on Wemby, and, he's young, he's gonna learn.
well,
There's
he's not
a lot of
playing at all
French
now.
centers going at each other in this particular series.
Well, they grow them tall.
I guess they
Um,
do.
But yeah, so like, just kind of hitting off of those things, you can't really compare any of that. I mean, it's good to know that, San Antonio is beatable because, their record shows that they've been extremely tough all
Mhm,
year, right? And I think you hit on this before, not in this episode, but the fact that the big change and the big difference between this series and the Denver series is the defensive that we're gonna play, right?
mhm,
You said the
yeah,
Spurs are the third best defense with a
yes,
110. And
yep.
we just played Denver and they were like 121, which is like 27th. So like it's night and day different or
Yeah,
whatever it was.
21st, and
21st, sorry.
then That's regular season numbers, and then
Yeah.
well, actually, Aaron Gordon missed quite a bit of regular season time, but without Aaron Gordon and Peyton Watson for the tail end of that series, Denver was I mean, Jaden McDaniels didn't lie. They're all bad defenders. They got exposed bad, athletically, on the perimeter, and in rim protection. Joker's a lot of things, but he's not a rim protector, and without Aaron Gordon's athleticism, they have no one who can rim protect. The Spurs, that is not the case. With Wemby, defensive player of the year, just a defensive monster. They've got athletes all over on the perimeter. Um, their backup center, Luke Cornett, he's 7'1". He's also a better rim protector than anybody Denver could put on the floor. And you're absolutely right. We talked about the regular season matchups. Not a lot to be taken from that. But one thing that didn't happen in the regular season matchups that I am excited to look at is Minnesota's big lineup. So in game 6, for most of the clutch moments, Minnesota rolled out a lineup of 7-1 Gobert, 6'9" Julius Randle, Naz Reid, and Jaden McDaniels. All of them 6'9" and 6'6" Terrence Shannon Jr., or TJ Shannon, as he likes to be called. Monster lineup. Athletically, physical, ball, rebounding, defense, like a good lineup. A little low on ball handling, ball security, but they actually did pretty good because Denver doesn't have much perimeter defense. Spurs, now I don't know how viable this lineup is going to be. It's one of the things I'm going to be anxious to see how quickly Finch goes to that lineup and what the Spurs counter for it is because they haven't seen it in the regular season. They didn't field that lineup during the regular season. But the Spurs, they go Wemby 7-4, which is just stupid. Um, Julian Champagny, 6'7", Stephon Castle, 6'6", great athlete. Devin Vassell, 6'5", De'Aaron Fox, 6'3". All those guys are very athletic, but they're smaller. They got Keldon Johnson off the bench, 6'5", but he's a stout 6'5". He plays bigger than his actual size, and he's the
Yeah.
sixth man of the year. Dylan Harper's also 6'5". They got Luke Cornett, 7'1". They also have Harrison Barnes, veteran, off the bench, but he's a slight 6'7". He would draw a Julius Randle matchup, and he's just not tough enough to stand up to Julius Randle. I respect him and everything he's done. He's a legendary high school basketball player. Was on those Great Warrior teams, but he's not to Julius Randle's level anymore. So I'll be very curious to see how that lineup does against the Spurs. Obviously, they're going to be watching tape on it and trying to have a counter for it. What else are you looking at when we think about this series, and what you think points that we should be watching for in these games are?
Well, I mean, the key thing that Minnesota needs to do in order to win the series is one, our defense has to be as good as it was against Denver, but probably better. But I mean, Denver's offense was better than San Antonio's. Okay, but like we are also going to be going up against a better defense, so therefore usually correlates less points scored on our side. Right. So which means our defense needs to be tighter and better there as well. But the thing I want to look at offensively is we have to be able to shoot a 3-pointer and we have to be able to hit our open shots because we didn't do that against Denver and we won, which is, makes me feel good that we still beat a team as solid as Denver without having, half of what our offense is. Cause I mean, we are one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the league as we have been. So we have to hit those. And if we don't hit those, how are we going to score? Are we just going to drive like we did against Denver? Because you're playing against a completely different center, right? You touched on it. There is no rim protector in Denver. They got two of them in San Antonio, and they could play both of them at the same time. So we can't just rely on that to be, how we're going to score our points unless we're going to drive right at them and try and give them foul trouble. But again, a 7'4" person like Wemby is extremely difficult to get in foul trouble because he doesn't have to be close to you to block your shot. He's got the wingspan, that's 75 feet long. All he has to do is reach up and
Some of the
hit that
blocks
ball real
he's done
quick.
this
Like
year is just absolutely insane.
it's ridiculous. So to me, I think it has to be the 3-point shot in order for us to really be in the series and to win. I mean, if we're shooting lights out, three or four games, I don't see how San Antonio can beat us because they're going to have to change their defensive mind to get out on the perimeter, which then does open up the interior. And that depends on where Wemby's at too, whoever he's guarding. Right. I mean, if they just stick him in the middle and still allow us to continue to shoot and shoot and shoot, or if they're going to put him out on somebody, so it really does depend depend on what they're going to do.
Mhm.
But to me, that's our key.
Yeah, it is an interesting thought because that's one of the kind of dynamics because obviously we want Rudy Gobert on the floor. No one has spent more time in individual matchup minutes guarding Wemby than Rudy Gobert has over the last couple of years. Rudy and both on the French national team, Rudy knows him. I'd say he's played relatively well against him. But a dynamic that I don't think we've really talked about yet is, and you mentioned it, if Wemby's camping in the paint, if Rudy's on the floor, Wemby has to camp in the paint. I mean, he's going to. Why would they do anything else? So if we play any lineups without Rudy, with Wemby on the floor, maybe let Julius Randle draw the defensive matchup, get under his grill, try and be physical with him. We've seen that work to a little bit of success in some of the regular season matchups. But can we pull Wemby off and out to the perimeter maybe a little bit to open up some driving lanes for someone like Terrence Shannon Jr. or Jaden McDaniels? Neither one of them have been shooting the three particularly well as of late, but they've been very successful in attacking the paint. So just a lot of different angles to look at. It continues to amaze me in these NBA playoffs how it becomes so matchup and almost a chess match rather than just roll the ball out there and whoever has the most talent is going to win. It really is an intellectual game along with a physical game when you get down to these individual matchups. So, who are you looking for to who you want to have the biggest impact on the series? Who needs to step up and perform assuming, well, actually, before we get into that, let's quick touch on our injury updates. So obviously, we're not going to have Dante DiVincenzo. Shout out to him, hoping for a speedy recovery. Probably not going to see him until middle or later part of next season. Kyle Anderson was an illness. All reports say I haven't seen anything that doesn't show that he will be back and playing with us. Good depth piece, provides nice size, veteran experience. Io day to day. It's the continuing report I've heard. He's participating in practices, but not like full participation. But again, these practices again aren't very hard. They're mostly intellectual practices at this point. But calf injuries, NBA players treat those very carefully, as they well should. We've seen a lot of instances of players with sore calf, and then the Achilles goes. I know Tyrese Halliburton was dealing with a calf issue during the playoffs, and it finally caught up
Yeah.
to him. And we've seen players take the precautions. Franz Wagner with the Magic, Jason Tatum again with the Celtics, Aaron Gordon with the Nuggets. And after seeing DiVincenzo go down, Io's in a contract year. I'm not surprised at all they're being cautious with him. I give it a 50-50 shot that he plays in game one. Ant's another story. We all saw that big knee bend backwards. I can't believe that he didn't tear something in his knee, but it was a hyperextension, bone bruise. Videos came out of him at practice, shooting free throws, doing three-point shooting drills, moving and jumping with his jump shot, which is insane. The injury happened a week ago yesterday. He is listed as questionable for game one. Not doubtful, not out, questionable. So now I think you and I are in agreement that at the earliest he should probably come back as game three. But you have to trust these NBA teams. They know Ant is the future. Ant is their team. I don't think they would risk him before they felt confident that he would be able to, be a contributing factor. But we don't know. Sometimes that competitive spirit just pushes you further than you might want to. So we will see on that.
And his own competitive spirit might be what it is too, right? I mean, he's a guy who wants to compete no matter what. Like, I'm sure him not being able to play, the rest of that series was eating him alive. So, like, he is going to play if he can. And I mean, honestly, to a point where probably he shouldn't be playing just because, like, he's a competitor. He wants to be out there and he thinks he's the best man on the court at all times. He's got that mentality. And we've seen that all the time from him, right? And the comments that he makes and the way that he plays and how he holds himself, like, he's a very confident individual in all of his skills, as he should be. So, that's something that I'm glad that you hit on because like game three is tough. We have to steal one from San Antonio in the first two for me to feel comfortable in this series.
Mhm.
And to do that against one of probably a top two team in the league. We're talking San Antonio, right? They're probably up there with OKC too. whatever, doesn't matter. To steal one in San Antonio from them without our best player and without DiVincenzo, a starter, and possibly without AO, like that's a huge ask
Mhm.
for our team to do. And not saying that we can't do it, but I would feel much better about trying to accomplish that with our best player back in there. And I don't want to rush him back either. I'm the same thing as you, but
Yeah.
as far as we know, if we go down 2-0, it's a huge challenge just to get back from that.
Yeah. So let's play this out as Ant and Io. They're being careful with them. They're not coming back till game 3. So who are you looking to for these first 2 games in San Antonio to help us steal a game, as you said, which is also important, and I completely agree with that. Who are you
Mhm.
looking to help make that happen?
Well, it has to be Randall. And I mean, for me, anyways, Randall's the veteran on the team. He's some guy that, we look up to, and we haven't had to ask Randall to be a 30-point scorer since he came to Minnesota, right? Like, and we need him to be that in at least one of these games. And the reason I say that is because we have to score points. We have to score points. And he's not been one who's just coming into the game and he's looking to take shots and this and that. Like he's been in there a little bit better since, the injuries happened in these last couple games. I'll give him credit for sure. And he's played a good series, but it needs to be better. And the only reason I say that is because everybody who's on that court needs to know that he's a threat at all times. And he needs to shoot and he needs to drive and he needs to play defense because we talked about him as well defensively on Wemby. That could be an option. And he's somebody that at times can definitely be very lazy or lackadaisical on the defensive side and on the offensive side, if we're being honest. Um, but he needs to set the tone for everybody else there. Like he's a guy that everybody's looking up to, and he's been there
Randall's yeah.
before. He's got the experience, so he has to.
Yeah, he has been there before. He spent time as a number 1 playoff option, with the Knicks for their trades to bring in Brunson and Cat and stuff like that. So,
And he
he's
doesn't need
had
to do
some
it long. Like we're not
no.
asking him to do it for the rest of the
Mhm,
playoff series or the rest of this playoffs, but we're asking him to do it for these next
mhm.
couple games because that's what we need at this moment in time.
Yeah, he no doubt has to step up and play well. It's a good shout. Another name I'm gonna throw out there is, a guy who's been playing well, but I think has the potential to, really break open one of these games. We've talked about we need to be able to hit perimeter shooting. Coming off the bench, Naz Reid. I think that we need a Naz Reid spark plug game. I think back to the conference finals versus the Dallas Mavericks, where he hit, I think, 7 of 8 threes, and then I think he missed a really good look at the game winner. Um, kept single-handedly kept us in that game, if not for a ridiculous Luka step back 3, because he's personally offended by Rudy Gobert's existence and decided he had to put that one in his face. If not for that, I think Naz Reid single-handedly steals that game and maybe changes the entire dynamic of the series, but I think we are gonna need in one of these first 2 games in San Antonio, a Naz Reid 5 or 6, three-pointers. He needs to go 5 for 7 or 6 for 8 from 3, and really give the Minnesota offense a spark plug. They're a very emotional team. One guy gets rolling and starts hitting things, the whole team steps up and follows, and vice versa. If everyone's missing their shots, it seems like, or if one guy's missing shots early, it seems like everybody starts missing their shots.
Yeah.
Minnesota plays as a team, and that's served them well, but that can also be susceptible for when someone's down, then they all seem to go down. So I'm looking Naz Reid can be that spark. Without Ant, without Io, without Dante, our next best shooter is Nas, and he's got to step up. So,
Yeah, I agree, and I love him. He's played very well, and he's been our sixth man for the longest time. And I think that he's somebody that everybody, all Minnesota fans, really love and respect. Nas, just in general, or Nas, sorry, not Nas, Nas. And I agree. He's someone who, I mean, what's he shooting? 40 some percent from the 3-point range.
I don't think so this year.
Is he
I
not at
think he's
40?
under 40 this year. I'd have
Okay,
to
so
double
which is a
check,
low
but
year for him. I mean,
he's
like
had
he's
he's had a
having
rougher year, which
yeah,
is why Keldon Johnson was sixth man of the year. And I
yep,
don't think Naz Reid made the top three for sixth man of the year, which was, I think, a
yeah,
surprise going in. But yeah, he's had a rougher year, and he has been dealing with a little bit of a shoulder soreness. You see him on the bench; he's always got
yes.
a big pack on his shoulder. So,
Also his
props to
wrist,
him for
like he
toughing it
injured his
through.
wrist. He injured his
Hmm.
wrist last series in the
Hmm.
end of the Denver series. I think it was like game 3 or 4. I think it was
Hmm.
4 actually that he injured it. It's same game as the other injuries that happened. He played through it, and you can tell that he's not 100% himself at times if you watch him on the court. But he also hit some big 3-point shots in
Hmm.
that last game that shows that he can still go out there and shoot that. So we do need that from him. There are other
Hmm.
players that I think can step up that. Um, Shannon, he can hit the three ball. Bones Highland can hit the three ball, but that's if we're going to be calling their numbers. Like I don't know
Hmm.
how much Shannon will be playing. He played an incredible amount game 6, and I wouldn't be surprised if that continues, but I don't know. That could have just been a one-time thing because it was a matchup based, and that's what we
Hmm.
needed out of necessity.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what Terrence Shannon Jr. or TJ Shannon, what his minutes look like and what his role looks like in this series. Like you said, it's a completely different matchup. He feasted in that game versus Denver because of his ability to just get to the paint, finish.
Hmm.
There was no rim protector. Well, San Antonio, as we've hit on several times, they've got perimeter defense and they've got rim protection. So if you reduce Shannon to a jump shooter, he's an NBA player. He can hit threes. He was 1 for 7 though in game 6.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so yeah, he only hit the one three. I mean, it was a
mhm.
good three, but he
It was a
only hit
big
the one.
three,
Yep.
big three. So we'll see how that goes. There's just a lot of fascinating things to look at. As we wrap up this show, John, what do you think? Give me a series prediction.
Well, there's so many factors that go into this series prediction. Based off of what we discussed, right? We don't get Ant back and we don't get AO back until game 3. I think we lose the series 4-2. And that's just it's me thinking that we probably go down 2-0 in San Antonio, and that's a huge hole to try and dig yourself out of. I don't like saying that, but at the same time, I'm a pretty realistic individual. And if we're down 3 of our best players against a top 2 team in the league for at San Antonio 2 games in a row, I it just doesn't look good for us. And we've been playing phenomenal and playing well, but this is also a completely different team that's on a completely different level defensively versus what we just played against. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's better than most of the experts are giving them. Most of the ones I see are a 4-1, a gentleman's sweep. I am going to go Spurs as well. I think to pick anything else, given the injury status, would be, just a little bit of wishful thinking. But I am an optimist at heart. But I'd say Spurs in 7. I think it's very likely that the home team just simply wins every game in this series. Um, we know Minnesota's crowd can bring it. You know, Spurs take the first 2 games. Game 3, Ant and Io come back. That Minnesota crowd, I think they take the next 2. And I think it just comes down to a game 7 in San Antonio. Their defense, their crowd, our lack of depth that we've had to deal with might catch up to us and just run out of gas. I'm open to being wrong. I love when takes on us picking against our team are wrong. So,
I mean, if we can get to a game 7, I will feel really good just because
mhm,
that's the spot that nobody ever expected us to be in.
mhm,
And that puts a lot of very good thoughts within the Timberwolves mindset saying, hey, like we're not supposed to be here, but we are. But also at the same
mhm,
time, it puts negative thoughts within the Spurs saying, hey, these guys are down, two players, and they're still pulling a game 7 with us. So we need to either pick it up or like I don't know what else we can do, right? So it's kind of
yeah,
a mind game there. You know,
yeah,
I do want to jump in because I'm going to upset a lot of people here, and we talked about this. If we get Ant back, if we get Ao back, we get them back for game 1, we win the series. There's no question in my mind that we win, and we're going to win 4-2 because we're going to steal at least one in San Antonio, and it's going to go the exact same way that it did in Denver,
yeah.
where
I
we come back
think,
to Minnesota,
yeah.
we win 2, we go up 3-1, we go back to San Antonio, lose, and come back to Minnesota and finish it 6 games, 4-2. First person to predict the Timberwolves to win right here.
I love it. I love it. I think you kind of touched on it, if it goes to like a game seven, something that we could lean on is this group has mostly stayed together and gone to back conference finals. This Spurs team, very young, this is their first playoff run together. They have a couple of veterans. De'Aaron Fox has playoff experience. Harrison
Mm.
Barnes has playoff
Yep.
experience. Are they up to the task of the mental and physical damage that the Timberwolves have proven time and time again that they can inflict on opponents in the playoffs when they flip that switch? It's going to be a fascinating series. We're going to do our best to jump on after every game, give you a recap. Maybe it's the next day. Tune in for us talking about each game as it goes through. Hopefully, we get to talk about a lot of Timberwolves wins. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow us. We appreciate any support you can give us as we look to grow this channel, this community, and continue talking about our favorite pro sports teams. Anything else to add, John, before we call it a night?
Oh, I'd just like to say, see you in San Antonio because we're not going to go, obviously. But when we get back from there, we're going to have 2 wins,
I
up
love it.
2-0, because Aunt and A are going to be in here. We'll see you guys in the next episode, okay?
All right. Have a good night, everyone.